Israel expands its ground offensive in Gaza City. More than 70 people are killed across the Strip. I'm Lee Barker. This is Al Jazeera Live from Doha. Also coming up, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio meets the Emir of Qatar a week after the Israeli attack that targeted Hamas negotiators in Doha. A UN inquiry finds Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. It calls on member states to stop sending arms to the country. Also ahead, the US destroys another boat off the coast of Venezuela. President Trump claims it belonged to what he described as narco-terrorists. Good to see you. The Israeli army is expanding its ground offensive.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. We are in the local government section, which I believe is depending on your book. I mean, could be chapter 11. It could be 12, depending on the actual version that you have. But normally it's chapter 11 of the in the textbook. Hopefully you all had a nice weekend. It was terrible. My Houston Texans lost right at the end. So that's the terrible part. I gotta tell you, I don't know if any of you have paid attention to anything in the news, but there we go, John. I see you still kicking. uh, Representative Michael McCall. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. He's a representative. I believe he represents like Elgin. It's Austin, Elgin, Manor. I think it heads down towards Brenham or so, and he isn't running for re-election at all, which is a big deal because he's a powerful member of Congress. He is like a Bush Republican, I guess if you put him on the scale. You don't hear much about him, even though this guy has, him and President Trump hasn't gotten along on a lot of things, but you still don't hear things about him because of the amount of power he has. He's always on the intelligence committees, either the chair or co-chair or assistant or whatever he has to do. And anytime anything big happens in the world, he's the guy that shows up on morning news on Sunday and explains it, from Afghanistan to Iraq to anything like that. And he's been there since 2004. One of the wealthiest members of Congress as well. I believe his wealth. I believe he was already wealthy prior to getting to Congress. He's not one of those guys that showed up to Congress and got rich. Yeah, it's going to be a big thing. The power in Texas looks like it might not be as powerful. You got John Cornyn, who was supposed to have been the Senate Majority Leader, which many thought was going to take over after Mitch McConnell, and ended up not being him. Now he's being opposed by the Lieutenant Governor, and I believe Chip Roy is running against him as well. John Cornyn is a very, very, very powerful member in the Senate. And it's hard to have power in the Senate because you can't really make a senator do things because they have the power of the filibuster and all those types of things there. But, he still has that power in the Senate and the influence and relationships and all these things. But if he loses that election, then there goes that power. And in the House, even though Texas has a lot of members, the members aren't really united in a way to make a huge difference at times. And when Texas redistricting, Texas is taking away Texas is trying to get rid of Jasmine Crockett, who, even if you don't like the lady, she still has a lot of power in Congress at the moment, being a new member. So you get these new members in there who have lots of power, or you have people who've been there forever. I don't know if Lloyd Doggett is even running for reelection. He said if he has to run against Greg Casar, then he's not going to run. And Lloyd Doggett's been there since like 88 or 92 or something like that. So you got all of these powerful people in Texas who probably not going to be there next session. And on the next two sessions or so. So going forward, it might look a little different and stuff like that if you were working up there looking at the power of Texas. As I said before, Texas has always had power, even back to LBJ, just because of the sheer number, the size of Texas, and the actual members, the actual number of people we have in the House. But when it comes to the Senate, from LBJ, who was probably the most powerful senator, Senate Majority Leader of all times, all the way down to John Cornyn, who looks like, since he didn't get it this time, he could possibly get it next time, but the other guy's already there doing it. It's going to be interesting to see how things turn out. I know a lot of people look at politics and they say, I don't like a career politician, but you don't understand that, or a member of Congress who keeps winning and new people aren't getting there. You don't understand a lot of these things are based on seniority. Everything isn't based on seniority. And, you could argue, well, it shouldn't be based on seniority. You shouldn't all of a sudden just automatically get it because you've been there for 15 years because you keep winning an election. That doesn't mean that you're qualified. But I'll tell you, the relationships that you make, the bills that you've passed for certain interest groups and things like that, and just sitting back and voting and the favors that you've handed out in voting for things. A lot of people owe you votes, and you able to get those votes on certain bills, and you have power and stuff like that. So it depends on how you look at it and stuff. We'll go over that during our political parties lecture when I talk about people there forever, and we'll talk about that more extensively then. But I just wanted to mention that these guys are very powerful people. These aren't just names, right? These are powerful names. Um, but there is something to be said about leadership in Congress being over the age of 70, and the average age of of someone here in this country, not so much. So, but we'll talk about that more and more in the future. I just wanted to put that out there. I thought it was important information. It's probably not a big deal to you all right now. You're like, okay, who is this guy? But it really is a big deal in terms of bringing resources back to Texas and things like that. Okay, so you have an exam on Thursday. Um, so you know it will. So the assumption is that you'll be completing the exam during class time. You do not have to complete the exam during class time, right? You can complete the exam prior to class time, um, or even after, as long as it's done by 11:59 p.m. I will not be accepting any late ones. I may even open it tomorrow for you, but it'll definitely be available during class time to be completed. You cannot backtrack. You can only go forward. And it allows for me to put, I create, so I create a bunch of questions. It's 35 multiple choice. It's three essay. The system allows for me to create, to put about 80 questions in there. So it'll sort of it'll be like random questions for, random for different ones. They all relate to the chapters. So it won't be something where you get something that doesn't relate to the chapter. You just may get something that's different from other people, but all of us, but all in all, it's just a way to work things out uh, so that you don't have to come in and take it or anything like that. No, you don't need a proctor. John, I'm working on an honor system, and this is why I have it set up like that. I have it set up where You know, you can't backtrack. It's locked down and all that stuff like that. To sort of uh, it, to sort of help with the any sort of cheating or anything like that. So no. And you have 65 minutes to complete the exam. Once you start it, the timer starts. So there we go. Oh, then you have three essays. Each essay should be as long as it takes. If it takes two paragraphs, then you should write two paragraphs. If it takes 3 words, then write the 3 words. It just should be answered in its entirety, right? So once you answer it, then you're good, right? It shouldn't be a page for each essay. That you are writing too much. I can assure you of that. So you're doing a whole lot if you're doing all that there. So, all right. Okay. There we go, people. Any questions about anything? All right, cool. All right, here we go. So I believe we left off. So we talked about what a general law city was, right? Right. A general law city is a city that has 5,000 or less people. A home rule city is a city that has more than 5,000 people, right? Um, in a general law city, they're handling things that they're not really doing a lot because it's not really a full city, right? These are these little small cities that you see out about in different places in Texas, and they don't really look like. I mean, you can tell they're cities because they have a sign that says it's a new city, and you got to drive 35 miles per hour through it, and it's a school right there. But other than that, it's still kind of tiny. But when you get to these home rule cities, right? These cities are larger. They have um, they have a government. They get to choose the type of government they have. Police force, fire department. They got all these things, right? They have contracted with electric companies, and maybe with someone to pick up the trash. All these different things like that. So there we go. All right. Um, I believe that we got going with the three types of city government: the council manager, the mayor council, and the commission form, right? Um, the council manager, the city council runs everything. We got here, right? Okay, I was just making sure because I don't want to run through them all, and then you guys are like, oh my gosh, right? So yeah, okay, cool, cool. Thank you, Alex and John. So yeah, a council manager is essentially right? We get the city council that basically runs everything, that has all the power in the city. But they hire a city manager who basically manages the entire city. A mayor, it can be elected or chosen by the council, but the mayor doesn't have much power. In the mayor council system, right? We have we have the strong mayor, which is basically the main system in this system. The weak mayor form, don't even worry about that down there. But the strong mayor, which is what we have in Houston and El Paso, the mayor has all the power. They can veto. They can put forth policies. They take care of the budget. They manage the city. Um, the mayor can be a great person, like a great king, or they can be a tyrant, depending on who they are. So, and they have term limits as well. The commission system is essentially a system where, so this is what we see in a lot of general law cities where we have these commissioners. So we might have a system there. We have a person there at times. It's a city administrator, not always, but we have at times a city administrator, or like a city manager or something who would sort of handle things. But normally, the commissioner, each commissioner, unlike the council, each a commissioner at times, I know from the city where I'm from, each a commissioner has control over a particular department. The police, the fire, parks and recreation, utilities, all these things here are controlled by one person, and they're probably getting a stipend or they're probably not getting paid at all to be a commissioner in the city. They're just doing it for the love of having the power and getting into the football games for free and all kind of things like that. I don't know, right? So there we go. All right. So let's get into these here, right? So we got the at-large elections. As we look at these, I want you to understand. So when you see the word at large means that whoever can vote, so whatever office is being represented, everybody who falls in that particular area gets a chance to vote for them, right? So think about it like this, right? So if you're voting for like mayor, the entire city votes for the mayor. If you're voting for like governor, the entire state votes for the governor. Those are at-large elections. It's not just one particular group gets to vote for the governor, or one particular group of the city, or one part of the city gets to vote for the mayor. No, everybody in the city is voting for the governor or the mayor, right? Now, when you look at a pure at-large system, right? This is so this stuff right here, we see it a lot in Europe, right? Where we'll have like 8 spots open, and we'll have 12 people running, and everybody votes, and the top 8 ultimately get in. That's basically how it works. The top 8 gets in. And then the at-large place system, which is a terrible type of system. Austin had it for a while. It's a terrible system, right? Well, ultimately, everyone in the city gets to vote for the person who's going to represent, you know, a council member spot 1, or council member spot 2, or council member spot 3 or 4 or 5. Which ultimately, if most people on one side, like think about Austin, if most people on west side of Austin or North Austin are voting in the election, and most people in the South are not voting, then that means that the people up north have decided who's going to represent the folks in the South. They have decided who's going to represent the folks in the East, right? Because they're not voting, and that's is a terrible system, but it is a system out there, right? Also, we have the single member districts, which ultimately are better system, I would argue, as you'll see on the next slide, because in these systems, it allows for more women and people of color to be elected. And I say this because we had areas in Texas up until like 1998 that hadn't been represented by any Hispanic person, and this was in the actual Valley area where they were never able to even get in there. So it goes all the way back. It was a book that I read by it was an author last name Green. I read it in grad school, and I don't remember the name of the book. I apologize. But in this book right here, they talk about how when the U.S. government came down and tried to push um, the Mexicans out of Texas, they tried to push some Mexicans out of Texas who they didn't like in the early 1900s. And the whites there joined forces with the Mexicans and fought off the federal government here. So the federal government left. The Mexicans, who are, Texans and U.S. citizens, were were so happy about it that they voted in these white people over and over and over again in the government. And they voted them in, they voted in their children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, all the way down to like 1998. They were still in office until finally we got the single member districts, which basically said that you have to live in the district that you're voting for, and only people that live in the district. So only people who live in that district can actually run for office. So first rule, right? You have to live there, and now only people who live there can vote to represent them. And with that, it created a system that started to elect more and more people of color, because now we get to elect people that look like us to represent us in government, even if they don't have the power to do anything in government. At least we have someone that looks like us in government. And that was the argument made by many of the Mexican Americans, in the 1990s. Now, so you already know what the single member is because we talked about that. But let's look at cumulative voting, right? As you can see, uh, cumulative voting basically works like this. So remember when I told you that if you have like 8 people running for office, I'm sorry, if you have 12 people running for office and we had 8 spots, then the top 8 to get in. Well, this is even worse, right? I mean, or better. I don't know, right? Because I feel like the top 8 getting in is nice. If you're someone who hates the two political parties, now you can get other viewpoints in there, right? But accumulative voting is something so that we can get rid of the good old boy type of system, right? If you're tired of the same people winning, then how do we get rid of it? Well, we do this kind of voting, and it becomes very complicated and it's like I mean I don't want to use the word tedious, but it becomes a system that's just like you're like, why are we doing this? But once you recognize why you're doing it, why you are doing it, it's worth the extra effort. And I'll tell you like this here. So imagine having 8 spots and 12 people running, and you go vote. Instead of you voting for, for Clark, to represent a seat. No, I get to vote 8 times. I don't get one vote, cumulative voting, right? I get one vote, right, in the pure at large type of a system. But in cumulative vote, I get 8 votes. So I can vote for Clark 8 times. I can vote for Clark 4 and vote for John 4, right? So I can split up these votes. And now you get these weird numbers of 5,000 votes for a person and 2,000 for another person and 206 for another person. And that's how we ultimately get our top people in office, which works well for like school boards, especially, and things like that. If, like I said, if you're trying to get people out of there or you're trying to get rid of a good old boy type of a system and things like that. And a good old boy system is essentially, if you don't know what that is, it's the same people being reelected and supporting each other to keep the same system in place for years and years and generations and things like that. We had these things. I'm sure many of you, when you took your history class and you were so bored in there, I'm sure when you're like, what do you mean? I'm bored in here. But when you took your history class, you probably learned about these these towns that only had like one baker. So it was just one baker in a town, one person working with like wood, like one person, so you got all these things there, and then they have a child. Well, clearly my son's taking over, so you can't be a baker in this city. We already got a baker, right? And he has a son, right? So we've seen this throughout history in many places and stuff. And thankfully, one of the things that, you know, the capitalist system that's pissed me off at times, I'll tell you that there. But capitalism is great because it says, hey, you can be a baker if you like, but wait until they taste my food. We're gonna see who lasts, right? It allows for others to sort of open up and see that there, which is fine. But when you have a city council that's stopping you, or when you have a government that's actively preventing you from even baking anything and handing it out to even get going, then it becomes the same dudes in office, the same type of family in office. It becomes a good old boy type of things, right? All right. If you guys have a question, just stop me or type something in the chat, in the chat, what I'm talking about, in this message thing, in the chat box. All right. You don't have to write this. I just want you to see this. I mentioned this to you all. I wanted you to know that Houston has a strong mayor system, but cities like Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, these cities here have a council manager, meaning the council has the power. The problem is that when you're there, you don't get the sense that the council has the power. You get a real sense that the mayor has the power, right? And it's funny, too, because like whenever George W. Bush ran for office, they were like, he was the governor of Texas, so clearly he can run our country, blah blah blah. And the governor doesn't do much in Texas because the lieutenant governor is doing everything. That's like when you're running and you're saying, I'm the mayor of Austin, I'm the mayor of Dallas, you know what I mean, or something like that. I'm the mayor of San Antonio. Um, well, a lot of times on paper, they don't do much, but we have seen them do things as mayor. We've seen Julian Castro do things in San Antonio. We've seen the mayor of Dallas do things. And clearly, when it comes to the mayor of Houston, well, he has all the power. So clearly, he's getting things done, even if it's good or bad. Oh, there we go. See? It's an old chart, but it still shows you the type of government that they have. All right. So let's check out special districts, right? Special districts. These are units of government that perform a single service, like education, sanitation, and these things tend to overlap or to cross the borders of existing units of government. So think about like this here, right? We have school districts. I know, like Hayes School District is in Travis County and in Hayes County, so it kind of goes into two counties and things like this. Um, Hayes, Hayes School District is also goes through Buda, Kyle, and some of Austin, right? So you have these things here. Comel ISD also, goes into Bexar County, into the San Antonio. So it's all kind of things where you see them going and crossing over different school districts and things like that. I'm sorry, different units of government, right? And we'll talk about this more. All right. So a school district. So a school district is essentially a special district. A school district is a special district, right? We have over 1,000 of these things here in Texas. Um, and when you look at certain areas of Texas, right, we have um, education goes up to like fourth grade, sixth grade, or even eighth grade, right? Um, and the school district, they get together, and they have a board, and these boards will elect, will hire a superintendent. And as I mentioned, the board of trustees is normally elected, and these guys, they get together and they create a budget. The policy for the schools. They adopt a textbook. They hire principals, the faculty, the staff. They do the school calendars. They also determine if they're going to get a raise or not, the employees. So there's all kinds of things going on there, right? All kinds of things going on there. I just want you to kind of see that. But these guys do rely on property taxes and things like this and money from the state. All right. The community colleges as well, right? Community colleges are one of these. That's another school district where they hire a board of regents and they ultimately rely on taxes as well. Okay, so MUD districts, right? A MUD district is essentially a municipal utility district. And as you can see here, these kinds of districts here are ultimately there to um, to give us these benefits of being in a modern type of nation, right? Or a modern type of city or something like that. If you like that kind of stuff, right? They offer electricity or water. They have someone who handles the gas or the trash and things like that. And when I moved up here from Galveston County, I had never even like I was like, what is burning? Like there was always smoke everywhere, right? And I never understood that. And then someone told me, right? Because I mentioned it in class, and a student said, "Oh, people are burning trash." I'm like, "What?" So people burn trash. Apparently, they go out and they dig a hole, put the trash in there, and set it on fire or something. I have no idea, right? So, something like that, right? And I'm like, what is this here? My my father-in-law, he lives in one of these cities. And my mother-in-law, they live in one of these cities. When I went to visit, when I would go to my wife's, home before we were married. Um, they had a huge propane tank outside where these people would come by once a month or every other week or something. I have no idea, and refill a propane tank. I didn't understand that because I just walk in the kitchen, turn on the stove, boom, it's there, right? Even water wells. If you're familiar with these things here, right? That a lot of people have water wells that they can't do anything without the water well. If it's electric, if the power's out, then you don't have water. So you got all these things here, and with these mud districts, it allows for it to now it'll be controlled by the city, right? A lot of times the city will control that. They'll add it into the taxes. Well, now that they handle water, they're going to handle your sewage, they're going to handle your trash, they're going to handle this and that, and all of that is just paid for through taxes. And with everybody paying, then hopefully it's a lot cheaper because everyone is paying into it. From the coast, we had the flood districts, right? I didn't understand a lot of things up here. Like it would flood up here, and it would just be flooded, and it would stay flooded for like a day or two. And I did not understand that because again, where I'm from, right next to the Gulf of Mexico, right? We um, paid extra in taxes in our city, and we would be upset if it's been 3 hours and it's flooded because we have floodgates and pumps. And we would be asking like, why haven't they opened the gates? Why haven't they pumped it out? And they're like, we have to wait until it finishes raining, and then we can do it because it's not going to work. So once it stops, they turn on the floodgates and the pumps just pushes out all of that water, pushes it back out there into the Gulf, and now we're all good. And I'm up here, and and we don't have that a beauty that benefit of doing that. Um, so the trash, Kathy, so it depends on where you live, right? If you live in a city that offers trash, it just paid for by the taxes. So it's a special thing where so let's just say that you're in a city that you don't have a trash coming up to pick up anything, or you're in a city but you're outside of the city district. You're right. You're like, I live in this city, but I'm not part of the main city. I'm like outside of that there. Then you might not have those people come to pick up trash automatically because you're not paying extra in taxes like we are if we live in that area so that the trash man can come and pick it up. So you would have to call and have them to come and pick up your trash on your own and do some sort of contract with them or go outside and dig a hole and burn it, I guess. Right. But I mean, and that's the whole beauty of having a city. I would argue, because I'm one of those people who just want to turn that on and it's working. I don't want to have to go through all that. I know that there are a lot of people who don't like being around people at times, so they want to be out there and they don't mind the extra work of having a well, the extra work of getting rid of their trash, and the extra work of having a plumbing type of a system that's equal to an RV or a mobile home or something like that. You know what I mean? So and there are people who are okay with that. Um, I'm not one of them. I'm not one of those people. But each one of those things are districts. Each one of those things are governments, are small types of government, right? Because they're getting taxes. Because taxes is being paid to fund these things, and there we go. I will tell you that something that you all might not know. I'm sure that a few of you do because a few of you, I'm sure, are from have lived close to large bodies of water. We had this thing there called a mosquito district where we have mosquito. Well, we had guys in trucks, riding around spraying every other day for mosquitoes. And when you're close to like the beach and all those places there, then you have to have people ride around and do that, or is there's a bunch of mosquitoes. I'm sure that some of you have been down to Galveston and lots of mosquitoes there, or you've been to the South Padre or wherever you've been to, and you're like, it is mosquitoes everywhere. It's not as many in Galveston as you would think because These guys, they ride around and spray. And we pay the extra in taxes so that they can ride around and spray for mosquitoes, um, and things like that. So, which was always weird. Like when I was up here, I mean, while being up here, I remember the city of Round Rock said, "So we're gonna fly over and let out some spray from a plane to fight to fight mosquitoes because Round Rock and Georgetown area had a bunch of West Nile virus up there about a year or two ago. So they had a plane flying by dropping stuff, and people started talking about entrails and all kinds of things. But I'm like, I've never seen it drop from a plane, but I guess if they're just doing it one time or twice, then that's one thing. But ours was a constant thing over and over and over again. Something you don't have to worry about if you don't have much water, right? Um, okay. So a property tax. We'll have to go through a process, right? You have to go through a process of having the council to put it on, or having people to, or whatever government to put that there, and then people vote for it. Because if it's going to be a tax, then we have to vote for it. Normally, that they put it in the newspaper or something to let us know about the vote is coming up, and they have to do that a couple of times or something like that. That there are some rules for how many, a number of times you have to make it public before you vote. Most people don't care or pay attention to it, and then we all of a sudden vote, and then and there we go. Look, a great. That's a good thing to ask, right? Because right there at the bottom, you see, I was going to get to that. That fewer than 10% of eligible voters actually vote in special district elections. So less than 10% of the people will decide whether or not we're going to have an increase in taxes or we'll even adopt that thing, right? And 1% attend board meetings. So it's not like it's a big deal. So we get these. So the times whenever everyone votes on it is if you put it on the ballot for like the presidential election or something like that. But if you just have just a quick election for it and things like that, and a lot of time it's there and we don't really pay attention to it. People call it hidden government. They're sneaking it out there, a hidden election. Um, uh, a hidden election for a hidden government, and they call it a hidden government because a lot of people don't realize that it's a government, it's a special district. But it's these hidden elections where they have an election like April the 18th, and you're like, what? Who has elections that day? Well, we did, and now it's law, right? And that's how they do it. So a lot of times they do, it does get through, but it's about what do you want. So it was a city in Tennessee. You might remember this. It was about five, no, it was about 10 years ago or so. Um, so we had a city in Tennessee where the fire department was trying to get, you had these volunteers who wanted to have an actual fire department where these guys get paid and they do everything and we just pay some taxes for it. And a lot of people were in favor of it. But this one guy, he led the charge against it. He was like, "What's the point? We're just spending money, wasting money, like blah 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 about fires and stuff." And lo and behold, I think you all know the end of the story. His house caught fire, and the fire department rushed out there, parked their truck, and just watched it. He was offering to pay them. He would do whatever, and they just watched it. It was the craziest scene ever. They have a fire department now. So there we go. Thing is, like, you can't try to get it when you need it. The whole idea of government like this is to already have it before you actually need it. And that's the beauty of having the special districts, especially when it comes to like water, instead of like having a water well. If a house catches fire, then where are you going to get where are you going to get water from? And a lot of times the water isn't really truly connected in the city to allow for you to put out water easily. And you're ultimately relying on water that's on the truck, that's in the truck. You know what I mean? Versus water from the city that could help with it as well. Um, Property taxes. A tax based on the assessment of the values of one's a property. If your property is worth enough or costs a certain amount, then they're gonna tax it based on that. So when they tell you, oh, so we're gonna get a community college here. It's gonna cost you 7 cents. That's it, and you're like, that's it. Well, 7 cents the 7 cents is based on how much that your house is worth. And I tell people that local government is not raising your taxes. Like a lot of times, local government is lowering taxes for you. You think local government is raising your taxes, and they're not raising your taxes. What they're saying is that, so let's just say that your taxes are at 10%, and your house is, $250,000. So now you pay your taxes on that, right? And then they get in there and they say, I'm going to lower your taxes. And you end up paying more in taxes. And you're mad at these people in government saying these people are lying, but they're not lying to you because they lowered your taxes to 8%. The problem is that the tax assessor went out and said, "Oh, that house for 250,000, I think is worth 400,000." So now you're paying 8% on 400,000, and you didn't do anything to your house versus the 10% on a $250,000 house. So your home, how much it is worth, and your home and property, how much it is worth, starts to move around and they start to do weird numbers with it. And this is why people go down and say, hey man, my house is not worth as much. I live in it. I know it's not worth that much, right? So there we go. Man, Clark, it is some crazy stuff, man. It happens everywhere. And that's the issue right there. So the county government clearly seems to be working with the assessor and stuff because they will lower your taxes and argue, look, I lowered the taxes. So nobody's mad at county government. They're mad at the tax assessor who is there, who's going to get reelected over and over again. It's crazy. It's crazy. And nobody is really mad at the assessor. Well, I guess I'm sure they would in South Carolina at that guy if they find out that he's being bribed. But how many times are we mad at the assessor? Most of the time, we're mad at the office. We're mad at the tax assessor's office. We're not mad at the person, the tax assessor. You know what I mean? And so it's no directed anger at anyone. It's at the entire group. And when you call, it's that one lady who answers the phone and she's upset because you're upset, or you go down there and she's like, well, you need to wait. I can't do anything about it. So you're mad at her. And you're never really mad at the tax assessor. So it continues down the same path over and over and over again. So, but people have done lots of things to fight against the taxes and things like that. Let's take a look at this here from, yeah.
State your name and address for the record so that the clerk can keep our records. Thank you. Mr. Thilly, I started your time.
You want to see me do the backspin? Like the backspin? Watch this. $400 on an average assessed home. Why did our taxes go up so much?
Thank you, Mr. Thilly. I like the interpretive dance.
I love it. I love it. You know, hey, you could be upset there and start screaming, or you can actually bring attention to it. And I think that more people know that the taxes went up and they should be upset about it because of his dance. I think it's great. There we go, Missy. So you've seen it before. There we go. Yeah, people do a lot of things in these meetings. It is crazy. Like um, in Seattle, Washington. These people go up and they just say the craziest things up there, right? If you ever get a chance to just look through their things, they get in there and they say the wildest things, but you hear all kinds of things. The council members are just there and they're just looking. I mean, they don't smile, they don't do anything. They're just over it, right? And they have to sit and listen to it. So, it's exciting stuff, and I love it. I love watching that there. But that's a part of government, right? You have a chance to go in, yell, scream, say whatever you like, call them all idiots if you like, and and that's it. And then your 2 minutes are up or so, being out there. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I definitely think it worked because we're in Austin, Texas, and we're talking about it. So good for him.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, what else do you do, right? If nothing else is getting through except to get out there and just dance. Uh, um, all right. Okay. Did I skip that? No, 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 I didn't. Okay, so we talked about this here, right? Municipalities, city government, and stuff like that. Based on the people who are there, we get the tax and things like that. And it's all based on the property and what the people feel like they actually need. Um, all right, let's get to the exciting stuff, the stuff that you all wanted to actually know about, right? You're like, all right, how does my city get bigger and bigger and things like that? Um, and here we go, right? If you look here, right? So once a city gets going, a city has to be um, a home rule city first and foremost, right? About you have to be a home rule city, and this is one of, and this is a big deal, right? Because the whole idea is how do we make our city grow, right? How do we get bigger and bigger, right? As a town, I don't want to just, be, I want to become more of a city, but I want more and more people as well, right? I can't just do this with a 5,001 people. I want to get to 50,000. So ultimately, what you do is, as a city, you are allowed um, to bring to extend out about a half a mile to like 5 miles, right, at a time. About a half mile to the 5 miles at a time. And ultimately, a lot of the time, what these guys do is they go out and they say, okay, so how are we going to grow? Okay, so we're going to get 5 more miles out from here. So let's just say it's Austin, and Austin is looking to grow out and reach out like 4 miles or 5 miles. Well, what they'll do is they will let those folks know. Those folks have to ultimately agree to it. And once they agree to it, they're going to let them know, okay, so you got a year to sort of bring your stuff up to the standards of being an Austin resident, right? Right. Any sort of thing that needs to be fixed, anything that you can't have in Austin, now you have a year to get that fixed and get rid of that. After that year, now I'm sorry, not during that entire year, the Austin the police department, the fire department, all of those resources, you will be treated like you are a resident of Austin. Other than the fact that you're still not up to standards and codes to the actual codes of the Austin, being in Austin, being a resident of Austin. After a year, right? If they have rules in Austin where you can't park your car, in the yard, you can no longer do that, or you're gonna get a fine. All those old cars that in the backyard that have stickers that are, well, before we had to have stickers, but all those old cars in the back that have no insurance and they don't work. Well, you got to do something about that, right? And now you are, now you are ultimately living under the actual rules of Austin because you were a resident of Austin after a year. And now I can extend out another 5 miles from there and do that area the same way until I'm growing and growing and growing and becoming a bigger city as far as I can go until I can't move out anymore, right? And a lot of times, these people, the codes of buildings and things like that, are not really up to standards, and they are forced to do that. But ultimately, if you've agreed to it, then I guess you're not being forced to do that and things like that. Um, but you also get like a 3 year advance notice, right? So they let you know, hey man, so in about 3 years we're going to be doing this, this, and this. So you kind of getting ready for it. But once you start to get those resources from the city of Austin, you have a year before the punishment starts to happen for not having those things and not being up to standards and stuff. Also, I'm assuming that you being an Austin resident, now you will qualify for like discounts. Well, I won't say discounts, but you'll qualify for a tuition being less at ACC and places like this because now you'll be a part of Austin, of the city of Austin, right? A lot of people, if you live outside of the district, then you end up paying a lot more for school than you would if you lived within the district, right? And that's how it is now.
So you don't, the residents don't vote on whether they want to be part of the city or not. The city just annexes itself out that direction.
The residents do vote for it. The city brings about the vote. I mean, the city puts forth it and sort of, leads the people down the path, and residents do vote. But how it works is it's not 100%. I believe it's 75% or so. So it's a lot higher. It's either 2/3 or 75% of people have to agree to it. So you can't just do it on a 51-49. You know what I mean?
So you can be made to belong to the city without won't, say I own a piece of property and everybody around me votes for it. In Texas, you have to belong to the city too.
That's the issue, Clark. So, to your point, and you worded that well, right? When everybody around you are doing it, then it becomes a problem. It becomes a real issue there, right? Because you can't just be on the island by yourself. The thing is, the city that you're in, you will no longer be a part of any city if you're not part of that city. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you just
Because the smaller city is no longer around because they've agreed to be a part of Austin. So I don't. I'm sure that if it's someone, you've been here in Texas, I'm sure a while, so you know that we have areas where people own like 100 acres. If they're not part of the city, they don't care. They're like, so I'm good. You know what I mean? The problem is that you're that home out there by yourself who's not part of the city. I don't really know how well it goes for you. You know what I mean?
right. Y'all don't have a county system then. I've been a lot of places. I've been here for 2 years, but in Austin for 2 years and 2 years down in Port Arthur. But I noticed, see, where I'm from originally in South Carolina, the county rules everything. So, the county rules the city. If tomorrow the county wants to take over all the city property, they just go in there and vote it and they take it. But literally you had people that could vote, could ask to join the city of Columbia and live 20 miles outside the city and be the only person in the city of Columbia. And you could actually have people in downtown city of Columbia say, I never want to join the city. I'm going to stay in the county. And it's not a vote around you. It's an individual choice. And I notice you guys don't have.
But that's nice. That's nice to an extent. So
yeah, it's crazy.
our counties, they don't have home rule status, and our counties, they don't have that power.
Okay.
They don't give the counties that power because the counties is a big government, and I see, y'all have more of a individualistic, the freedom to do as I please. We would probably have that if it weren't for EJ Davis. So we just hate the bigger government telling us how we're going to do things, we don't mind the smaller government telling us what to do. It's just not bigger government, it seems. So, we got a different viewpoint. So I see that we have prioritized our mayors over everything else,
Yeah.
and you guys have prioritized the individual over everything else. And so basically the same, just who are you choosing to prioritize? I guess the issue um, is that Texas is not going to say, because if we had that, it would be a crazy type of system. And Texas is not going to, and I know a lot of counties, cities, I'm sorry, are not going to say, well, I'm going to send the fire department 20 miles out to go help that guy there who's in our city and drive past everyone else. That's going to be a waste of resources and gas, and our residents are not going for that. You know what I mean? So they're just
Yeah,
not
I guess
doing
the area is too big too. I mean, South Carolina's tiny compared to
it. Okay,
Texas. So
then,
I
yeah,
guess the
yeah,
area got a lot to
okay,
do with it.
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But our
I keep
counties,
forgetting about that.
yeah, our counties are insanely strong. The cities are real weak, and you know, the sheriff has got enormous power because he's a separately elected official. And I was just wondering, it seems like your cities in Texas, our cities now, I should say our, because I live here, but our cities seem to be the power base
Yeah,
instead of the counties,
yeah, that's
which is a
yeah.
good thing if, especially most people live in cities like myself. I mean, I'd rather have it that way.
Yeah,
That way
and
I
the
know
thing
where
is,
my tax money goes.
if you're not a part of the city, if you're like out there by yourself, then the county government. So let's just say that you're in one of these unincorporated areas. The county government, they will ultimately drive out there to help you. So the police from the county will come out to help in those areas instead of the city. Now, the county can help out in the city as well, but the county normally goes to those unincorporated areas that are
Mm,
outside of the jurisdiction of the cities to help them and stuff like that. So.
sounds good.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, I keep forgetting that Texas is big. I keep just thinking of everyone else at the same level, and yeah, it's not the same. Um, so what I do want to tell you is that the important part of this here is just the first bullet. So the sales tax is 1%, right? A municipal sales tax is 1%. So that's how much we actually charge. On sales tax, the other one comes from from the county. So we get like 2 cents from the county and from ultimately local government, right? 2 cents, and then the state government charges the other 6.25. So that's how we get there. All right. Um,
So do we need to know the breakdown of those cents that you just mentioned?
the 6.25 stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Eventually, in our lecture on public policy, most likely, but I don't know if you need it now. I don't
Oh,
know.
not
Who
for
knows?
the test.
Who knows? I don't know. I don't remember how I did that. So,
All right.
um, so we look at the county, right? And this is normally the main offices that we have here in Texas, right? We have a judge, clerk, the commissioners, a tax assessor, and we have a justice of the peace and a sheriff, right? So we have those all the time, right? And a lot of those things sometimes in smaller counties overlap and things like that. Here, as you can see, um, on the last bullet, which you don't have to write down, but that's what I was telling Clark. Like our counties that they don't have all of that extra power there. And really, the only important thing on this slide is the first bullet. You should know that Texas has 254 counties. 254. That's all you really need from that slide if you're looking to limit the amount of notes that you're jotting down and get right to it. So there's 254 is important on this exam. 254 might be important on our final exam. Just know that we have 254 counties and you'll be good. I don't know if it's there, but I feel like it might be something that's important. That might be there. All right. Let's hop into this stuff here. Now, you don't have to write this down, but I do want to go over it. I mean, if you're jotting down notes, right? But I do want to go over, right? the counties have a lot of power, right? They do have power over things, right? So in my U.S. class, like when I go over like dual federalism, or at least how did our country operate after the Constitution was adopted? Well, how it operated was that the federal government kind of worked like sponsors, and they kind of encouraged things and they handled things, but basically most of the stuff was handled at the state level. And that's how we have it the counties. The counties do handle things, but most of the stuff is handled at the city level. But let's just talk about some of the things that the counties do, right? They maintain the roads and bridges and our jails, the county jails. They're over law enforcement, right? They have birth certificate, death certificate. And I tell people, like, if you're going to get married, then go to a county that is modern, right? If you go to the county clerk to get married and they go to the back and they get a box, and she takes down the box and she goes through a file and she pulls out a sheet of paper and then she goes and make a copy of it, and then she goes and you know, and does all this stuff. Look, and you should no. Not in 2025, right? This stuff here should be somehow digitized, right? You know, Travis County is clearly up to date and things like this, but we also have death certificates. That they collect taxes and all this. Look, the counties handle motor vehicles registration. And one thing that we don't think about is that the counties handle dead people who can't you know, who folks who either haven't have never been claimed, right? I don't know if you knew this, but we have like but each county keeps like a database, or I'm assuming this huge three-ring binder of dead people who have not been claimed, and and we have to have a spot to bury them, and they take a photo. So if you're looking for someone, you show up, you look through the database. If you found a loved one of yours, you can have them, you know, moved and to another spot and things like that. So they handle a lot of things that people don't realize are being handled, and they just get done right without any of us knowing. The birth certificates, all those type of things that the counties are handling, that there. And as I mentioned, roads and all that, and taxes and social services and all that. They also, we do have some county parks that a lot of people they don't realize. But one of the things, you know, as you can see at the bottom right, I know that that many large counties in Texas will have a county hospital, right? They will have a hospital for like poor people, right? Or people who can't afford, who don't have health care, and things like that. So you're able to still get in there and still go to the hospital and things like that. I know in Galveston County, we have University of Texas Medical Branch, and there's just many of them all around. Also, the counties will decide where strip clubs that they can be built, and things, whether or not these things can be built a certain place or close to a church or a school and things like that. So all those rules come from the counties and things like that, along with assessing your homes to decide whether or not your home is worth 250,000 or 400,000, and depending on if you're moving out to sell it or not. It depends on how much you actually want it to be worth and things like that. Here is the smallest county in Texas, right? A is Loving County. I want you to see that. All of those major things, right? The you know, you got the commissioners, the judge, and all this stuff here who actually represent the precinct, right? Each commissioner represents a precinct, and a judge who's there to make sure that it's an odd number. So when we're voting as a commissioner's court, it's always 3-2. Now compare that to Harris County in Houston, the largest. They have all those things plus more, right? So you got a lot of things here in Harris County. So you have all of those major things: the commissioner's court, the judge, the commissioners, right? The treasurer, the constable, the sheriff, and all that. But they also have all the other stuff as well. So they have library, youth, community service, public health, all kinds of stuff. All right, Let's look at the structure of government here. The commissioner's court is basically the judge plus the 4 elected commissioners, right? And I believe I went over, and I just went over this just now when I mentioned we have the commissioner's court. We have 4 people along with the judge to ensure that it's an odd number. So when we're voting for things like the budget and things like that, then ultimately it'll be 3-2 at all times. So they're not really over anything, right? Human resources will have more power than these guys. The actual people hired will have more power than an elected official. Now, the elected officials, the commissioners court can decide to create a new job or a new office and stuff like that, and get us to approve it, in the budget and things like that. But ultimately, that's how it'll go. And they get to pass laws and things like that, whether or not you can have certain things, whether or not the county is going to, hand out things. And the sheriff also has that power to decide whether or not that they're going to punish people for having small amounts of marijuana and things like that. So you see a lot of, rules and stuff at the county level, where they're able to be more lenient or not if they feel like it. The county judge is elected. Everyone in the county votes for him, so it's an at-large county election. And he presides over the commissioner's court, right? He's over the budget. He's over elections, whether or not we're going to have more ballot boxes put out there, whether or not we're going to allow them at ACC for students to have more access to them, or if we are not going to have them at all. And in the past, whether or not we're going to have, 24-hour, ballot places for people who work all day and they can only get there in the evening and stuff. So you got all these things that the county judge will have the power to do if they choose to. Also, the ability to vote at any place at any time instead of being forced to go to your own precinct where you live to vote, since it's 2025. And technically, going to a place and voting should be fine according to many people. I've always argued if you got a great message, it doesn't matter how many people you allow to vote, you'll win. And then we have the commissioners, right? These guys serve a 4-year terms. They're single member precincts, meaning that you have to live in the precinct that you're running for, right? And they're over roads and bridges. Great job, right? Who wants to be a commissioner in here? You're over the construction of roads and bridges. There we go, John. Hey, let me explain something to you. So, I remember this, 2014 or so. Dude calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm holding a fundraiser." And so first off, so in 2010, he calls me and he's talking about running for, for election. He ultimately wins, right? But then 2014, he calls me and is like, "Hey, I'm having a fundraiser." And I said, "Oh, okay then." And he was like, "Yeah." He said, "Man," he said, "I had it today and I'm having a couple of more." And I said, "How did it turn out?" He said, "Man, it was packed, a standing room, you know." And I was like, "Oh, okay then." I was like, "Not." He was like, "Man, it was $500 a plate." And I said, "What did you serve?" He said, "Two pieces of chicken, uh, two pieces of chicken, green beans, a roll, something else." And I said, "Oh, I know what you selling." And he starts laughing, right? Because listen, like you ever had, so these elections, these bond elections that we vote on, where it says, so are we in favor um, of building a new road here? It's going to cost us $500 million to build this new road, right? That's going to allow for us to do this and that. It's this new bridge that's going to be built. Look, I don't care. Even if I give John and Kathy and Clark and Missy and Karina, all of y'all $1 million a piece. So I'm still gonna make a $700 million a profit. You see what I'm saying? I'm gonna make a profit because I'm gonna get a $700 million contract from the county to build this road. And then as I'm building, I'm gonna tell you, hey man, I'm actually short. We're gonna have to go back and get more money. You know what I mean? So there we go. So you're selling that. You're not selling a chicken or anything like that. You're selling contracts because you're like, okay, so after it gets done, you're like, oh, we have to find a company that can do it. I wonder who we do. Oh, well, maybe it's that guy who bought the $500 plate from me. Yeah. And then we have a sheriff, right? The sheriff is normally in Texas. Uh, the sheriff is kind of chill. Um, the sheriff that does not bother anybody. The sheriff normally minds his business. The only time the sheriff is doing something is when he's doing something weird at the jail. But if everything is fine in the county, like people aren't getting their throats cut at Target over and over again and stuff, people aren't mad at the sheriff. I'll just put it like that there. And the sheriff is pretty chill. All the sheriff needs is a cowboy hat and a nickname in Texas and a sign. You know what I mean? Bud, Butch, whatever it is, Mitch, it doesn't matter. That guy's going to win. And once he wins, he's going to be reelected over and over again. And there we go. Now, the constables. The constables are elected, right? These are police officers. These are the guys that go out and serve warrants, right? Their numbers vary in size depending on the county, depending on what what the county has agreed upon, right? And a lot of times it's sort of based on the actual number of justices of the peace. But these guys here, they're doing, sometimes they're jerks, but a lot of times, you know, these guys are doing the work that we don't really want to do, which is going out to serve a warrant. That's that's kind of bad, you know what I mean? Because you don't know if they're going to shoot or what they're going to do, right? So they serve warrants and things like that. But constables do good work out there for us. But their number do vary in size depending on the county, and they do serve legal papers in the county and things like that. If they're not there, then the sheriff has to do it, which doesn't always turn out great as well. So. And these are just some of the other offices: a county attorney, district attorney, county clerk, district clerk, county tax assessor, and all that stuff like that. All right, come on, let's get to it, people. So, Federalist Paper 1745. So I'm gonna go over this, and I want you to understand this here first before I get into it. What you need to know for your exam, right? So this is what you need to know for your exam. You need to know that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You don't need to know this yet. I'll tell you when you need to know. But let me give you a background on the Federalist Papers. So I know that people tell you that our founding fathers thought this and our founding fathers, you know, did that. These people are lying to you. Our founding fathers were not walking around as one particular group, all agreeing on the same things all the time, right? They didn't agree at all, right? And we have two groups of people here in our country now. One who believes in states' rights and one who believes that the federal government has the last say. The folks who believed in state right at the time, so ultimately, once we won our independence from Britain, we created we created a government that was called the Articles of Confederation. It was our first constitution, if you want to look at it like that, where the federal government didn't have any power and the state had all the powers. Well, that wasn't really working out well, as you know, as your coach tried to explain that to you when he talked about a Shays Rebellion and how we had to change that thing up. So now we get together to decide to update, to tweak the Constitution. And they got there and they didn't tweak the Constitution. I'm sorry, and to tweak the Articles of Confederation. And they didn't tweak the Articles of Confederation. They created a new document and they called it the Constitution. Now, half of the country are thinking, half of our founding fathers are thinking, oh, they're just meeting in Philadelphia to tweak the Articles of Confederation. The guys in Philadelphia are thinking, nah, no, we're not. We're getting rid of that thing. So now the other people are mad. They're like, why are you trying to do this? And you added in a king and you're trying to call him a president? They're like, it's not a king, man. It's a president. So now they have to have a public debate. And that public debate, since they don't have a radio or television, all they have are newspapers. The public debate were in the papers. And the Federalists were the people in favor of the Constitution that gave, ultimately, it said that the federal government has the last say. And the anti-Federalists were the people who were in favor of the old government, of the same government that's in place right now. They say it needs to be updated, but we shouldn't be thrown out. And we had people in the anti-Federalists like Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, and people like that. And the Federalists were made up of like Madison and Hamilton and John Jay and those guys, right? So they're just having a public debate in a newspaper, and here are the ones that I picked out that were related to the state government. Now, this is what you need to know. Federalist 17 is written by Hamilton. It's written by Hamilton. And Hamilton wrote that people would be more loyal to the state government because the state is closer, right? Because it's human nature to be more loyal to things that are closer to you, right? Think about it. People are more loyal to the state than they would be to the federal government. Just like they'll be more loyal to the city than they would the state. Just like they would be more loyal to our neighbors than we would the city, right? In the same sense. Because it's closer. He also said that most court cases will be tried at the local level and not the state level. Most court cases will be tried at the local level and not the state level in this government. So basically, it's written by Hamilton. The people are going to be more loyal to the state government than they would the federal government. So you have nothing to fear. And most court cases will be handled at local level, not the federal level. So this is him trying to reassure the people. Now, Federalist 45 is written by Madison, right? And Madison is like, he's trying to bring us all together, right? He says that we didn't fight a war just to split and go separate ways. You know, it's we the people. It's not we the states, right? We're all united as one, right? He says that we should not be afraid of the Constitution because the states will control everything. Hey, the states will ultimately choose who's going to be the president. The states are going to choose who's going to be in Congress. The states are going to choose, the states will have power over redistricting, right? The powers of the states are numerous and indefinite. And the power of the federal government are few and defined. He says, listen, the only thing that the federal government can ultimately do is coin money, declare war, tax, and make peace. So most of those powers will be at the federal level. The state level. So don't be afraid of this of the Constitution, right? That's all he's doing, to reassuring the people. And that's what you'll need to know for your upcoming exam. Okay? Did you all get all that?
Yes.
Well, if you didn't, then here you go. So there we go. See, I wrote it out for you. All right. It was me. It was not AI. I did this. I want you to know this. So if you see a mistake, then you every now and then I type in the same word twice so I can make it more authentic. It looks like I stuttered, right? But all in all, yeah, this is what you'll need to know for your upcoming exam. It'll help you understand that because it will be there as one of your options for your upcoming exam. I'm sorry, for one of your essays for the exam. And I'll see you all next Tuesday. Please be safe, everybody.
Professor, I was checking for the movie that you mentioned, The Last Man Standing, and I didn't see it on the.
Because it's in module 2.
Oh, okay, so it hasn't come out. Oh,
It hasn't come out yet.
it
So,
hasn't come out.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, module 2. So about that Last Man Standing, let me say it again. So I'll be here Tuesday, and I will log on, and I will ultimately start the film if you want to watch it here, or you don't have to show up at all. Like you can just watch it on your own. It's totally up to you, right? You don't have to watch it with me. You can watch it on your own. But I'll also have it playing here if y'all show up. If nobody shows up, then I won't play it. I won't worry about it and assume that you're going to watch it on your own. But it'll be found under module 2. You'll be able to find Last Man Standing there, and it'll be there.
But I
Okay.
haven't seen no information for modules. Yeah, it's nothing for module 1. Well, at least maybe I'm missing it. But when I go, I didn't see anything.
Oh, because you don't have because you don't have access to it yet. See, let me show
Okay.
you. See, if you look right here, see, you don't have access to it yet. It's hidden from you. But if I do this, then you get to see it, and now you'll see all of these modules, right? It was hidden because it wasn't for you yet. And then when you click on it, then you'll be able to find the exam here. And then when you go here, then you'll be able to watch Last Man Standing right here. And you'll also have access to Year of the Liberals, Rise of the Republicans, and you
Yeah.
have access to all these things here. So you'll be able to see all that once I open it. But yeah,
I guess I'm missing the information where to get the modules info, the other stuff.
but
Okay.
you couldn't see the information because it was hidden.
It has been hidden. Okay,
But
thanks.
you can see it now because I just opened it up, so you can see it.
Okay,
But you won't be able to see the exam until I open it.
yeah. Okay, just
All
wanted
right.
Professor, I have
Okay
a
then.
question.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any homework other than the exam that we have?
I'm sorry.
Is there any homework other than the exam we have?
Well, first off, hold on. Real quick, I'm sorry. We don't have class on Thursday. It is assumed that you're going to do the exam during class time, so we will not meet Thursday.
Okay.
So, yeah, other than that, you still have your current events and things like that that are ultimately due when they're due. I don't even know if you have a current. I don't know when your current event is due. Oh no, it was due on the 11th last week, and you have response papers. So it was just those two things there that you'll have that you'll ultimately do.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Welcome back to Creative Excuses, and welcome to a brand new series. For the next month, I will be committing to playing through the new RuneScape free skill, Never Fantasy, with a twist. I will not be using my almost max Iron Man. I will be using a brand new account with a special limitation. I will be playing a RuneScape free version of Old School RuneScape's Ultimate Iron Man. We're going to get into what that means a bit later, though. But why is an ESO, an Elder Scrolls Online content creator, doing this? Well, first, I am a RuneScape player before an ESO player. I have played RuneScape off and on for some 16 years, and I have been playing a RuneScape 3 Iron Man for the past 5 years. I love RuneScape. Second, because it is new content to play, and I have an opportunity to grow the Creative Excuses community a little bit by showcasing it, and maybe finding hard mode overland, everybody.
I feel like the first season was so much us kind of getting our bearings and figuring out what the thing is, at least for me. And it was so intense and so amazing. But this time, I think now we know kind of what the schedule is, what it feels like, and now we can kind of really like have fun and get closer with our castmates, because a lot of the times it's like you get there and you just start, and there's not a lot of time to really talk about your lives. But now I feel like I can get to know you. I don't know you at all.
Patrick.
Isa, nice to meet you. Love your work.
It's Patrick? Oh,
God.
That's embarrassing.
I wasn't going to say anything, but whatever you want to call me is fine, Noah.
Okay.
I feel like the first season was so much.
You know, we did, like I said, we did movie meetups for the last 4 nights in a row, starting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then culminating last night, Sunday. And at every one of those movie meetups, there were pretty big crowds for other movies. Like we did the movie meetups, we did what we do. We did The Thing, then we did 2 nights of The Long Walk, and we did Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, which was awesome. But at each one of those screenings, another screen of those theaters, at least one, was playing Demon Slayer, Infinite Castle. And the crowds, like I watched them and I was talking, I was like, the crowd seemed to be pretty good. I mean, it wasn't like a $300 million opening kind of Avengers Endgame kind of packed, but it was really good turnout for those. And so I was not surprised at all to open it up and then see that box office Demon Slayer had a, get this, $70 million opening. Not only is it now the biggest, what they're calling, at least in the article from Variety, they're calling it the biggest animated opening in history. I think $31 million was the previous one. And that was for a Pokemon movie that had like $31 million, and that was the record. This thing just more than doubled that with a $70 million opening. And not only is it great for anime, that's not bad for a kid. Not only was that great for anime, it's the biggest opening weekend any Sony film, because remember Sony's the distributor behind this. It's the biggest opening weekend that any Sony film has had in 2 years.
Wow,
in 2 years.
That's huge.
The biggest opening they've had. Like, think about that. Sony is a major studio. Now, granted, they haven't had the best 2 years, but in the last, like for a major studio to have this be the biggest opening in the last 2 years, that is huge. Now, look, I'm not going to be disingenuous. I'm not personally interested in the film. This movie is not for me, but that's totally fine. It was great being at the movie meetups and then seeing crowds of people coming out of another film, and they clearly had a good time. And as a movie fan, that's all I want. I want people to go to movies and have fun, whether it's or not it's a movie that I'm into. That's irrelevant. They went in, they had a good time, and they enjoyed great success. Rob, it was great for the theaters. The theaters right now loved having a movie that was opening to $70 million. And I think this is going to open, again, it's not, I don't want anybody to think I'm biased and I want to see it. No, these aren't even movies that I like. But I think this opens the door, Rob, but now, just because this work doesn't mean anything that's an anime is instantly going to make $50 million opening weekend. We already know that's not true, but I do think it opens the door for others like this to maybe happen again. And I think this is great for Sony. I think this is great for their fans. This is obviously great for the movie theaters. So congratulations to them. This is huge. Rob, what do you make of this result they had?
It's massive. And remember, for Sony, this is an acquisition. They didn't make this movie. They acquired it to release it domestically, and what a win. And I think it also, the real thing that it signifies to me is, I always talk about pop culture needs to belong to the generation that's absorbing it or consuming it. That's how pop culture is driven. And, we try and, let's watch Back to the Future again. Back to the Future belonged to 1985. It's 40 years old. Yeah, now it belongs to all of us. But I'm curious. I love seeing this happen because, somebody went to the movies. I saw before we met you in Vegas, we were sitting outside, or we were sitting in this restaurant watching people walk right in front of the window. There was so many people dressed up in K-pop, in Demon Slayer cosplay, going to the theater, young people, old people,
and shirts and all that kind of stuff.
All kinds of things. And there was a huge excitement, and people were really excited. I'm sure people had seen it multiple times already. And I love the fact that this is a movie for audiences of today, and they're consuming a foreign film, which is really exciting. I find this really interesting and fascinating and hopeful and exciting, because I love seeing that people have something that they can call their own. They're not watching. I mean, look, Jurassic Park Refund is a franchise that started in 1993. Yeah. I mean, this. But
to be fair, it's still making a lot of money. To be fair, it's still making a lot of money.
It is, but it doesn't belong to the current generation. They're inheriting this. And whereas the Demon Slayer franchise has just been on an upward trajectory, and I love seeing the excitement around this. And plus, I love the fact that it's a franchise that comes to us from a foreign country that has a whole different sensibility than we have here in America or that they have in Europe. And it means that, in terms of the diversity of the kinds of entertainment people are watching, I love the fact that it's coming from a different place in the world than here.
Well, and listen, right now, K-pop Demon Hunters is no longer #1 on streaming, but basically speaking, right now, the biggest movie on streaming, we're talking about things, not specifically, but is K-pop Demon Hunters. And right now, the biggest movie as of today, at least for this weekend, the #1 movie in theaters is Demon Slayer. This is a big moment for that, because I don't see anybody talking about this. Everybody's talking about how wonderfully successful Demon Slayer was. But think about this. Like, the biggest thing on Netflix practically right now is K-pop Demon Hunter. And right now, the biggest thing in the theaters right now is Demon Slayer. And I think That is a significant milestone that people should not be overlooking. And you know, Sony, the people in the boardrooms at Sony are like, okay, what's next? And sort of thing. And now, and I guarantee you, everybody else is looking at this now too. Warner Brothers is looking at this. Disney's looking at this. Like, it's not an insignificant thing. And again, it's not the genre type of thing that I've enjoyed all that much, but that's fine. This type of success should be celebrated. It should be put up on a pedestal and really like commemorated. I think this is wonderful for them. And Rob, I feel really great because Rob, you know, we've had fans and viewers of our show for years. A lot of them for years and years and years and years have often written in and say, you know, why don't we get more anime stuff in our theatrical presentations? Why don't we get more of this? And I said, well, you know, right now it's just this. North America is not the audience for it. But that's clearly changing. And I can't help but be really excited and thrilled for fans who have wanted something like this, who have waited for something like this, for this type of success to come along for them. And I just think it's great for everybody.
Totally.
Guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Prize Picks. Look, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right actually means you win. And with football back, there is no better time.
You sure you want to do this, Captain? It's too late to complain now. I've got to see red-haired Shanks.
Spade pirates, huh? So you're the rookie everyone's talking about. Came to say hello.
Wait, it's not what you're thinking. My little brother used to go on and on about you saving his life when he was young. So I'm here to say thank you.
Luffy? Hot damn. I didn't know he had a brother. Well, come on in. I'm glad to meet you. Papa Squat, and let's talk. This calls for a banquet. Oh, yeah? Huh. He's still dead set on becoming king of the pirates, huh?
Pretty much all he ever talks about. Although, I feel bad for the kid, because I'm the one who's going to be the next king.
Yeah? You think so, huh?
Well, the first thing I've got to do is let the whole world know that I mean business.
I see. And what's your plan?
I'm going to defeat the most powerful man in the world, of course.
So, Whitebeard, then.
That's how strong my big brother is. You mean there's a flesh and blood person that you couldn't beat?
Big brother of a monster is an even bigger monster.
I guess so, because Ace used to beat me up all the time. But I bet now I can kick his big butt.
I'd like to see you try and back that claim up. So, exactly whose butt's getting kicked?
Oh, hey, Ace. This is my crew I was telling you about.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for taking care of my kid brother. I know he's a handful.
Oh, no, not at all.
Come on, be honest. This is Luffy we're talking about. Isn't he a bit much for you to handle at times?
Not at all.
You're good people.
Well, sit down and relax. I'm sure you two have lots of catching up to do. I'll make some tea.
No, that's thoughtful, but I don't want to impose.
It's not exactly what I expected. I'll say.
He's polite, helpful, and gracious, the polar opposite of Luffy. One of them only cares about stuffing his face. There's no way.
What kind of storyteller inserts the backstory for the main character halfway through a series, after the scene of gut-wrenching loss that it is most relevant to, and relegates the most important supporting characters to the sidelines during one of the most important arcs of the entire series? Well, my answer to that is a genius. I am convinced that Oda is playing four-dimensional chess while the rest of us are playing tiddlywinks. And I'm convinced of this by a specific moment in this fantastic story that I'm about to talk about. One moment, a devastating, beautiful sorrow, and life-affirming moment. In fact, I would say that it rivals the I Want to Live moment from the Enies Lobby arc for me, which has up to now been my favorite moment of One Piece. It absolutely encapsulates the sublimity of One Piece. The backstory in that moment, it lays bare the full extent of Luffy's loss. We are devastated along with Luffy because we know the story of how he grew up with his brother Ace. We feel his pain, we feel such a degree of empathy, and we feel his isolation. And yet, in that moment of devastation and loss, we also feel the affirmation, the eternal yes, the decision to get up, the determination to live. How does Luffy find this? How do you find the strength to learn to carry grief? Because grief is not something you ever put down, but you can find the strength to carry it. Trembling and stumbling his way back to the light, Luffy grasps the thing that can save him from despair. I have my crew. In that moment, I realized just how much I missed the Straw Hats, who were absent, largely absent from Marineford and the post-war arcs. And I think that was a brilliant touch on Oda's part, having them absent, to give us this one devastatingly beautiful moment, helping us understand just how much they mean to Luffy. They are his Nakama. One Piece is family. One Piece is joy. One Piece is life. Welcome to my channel on the Best of Fantasy. Today, let's talk about One Piece, specifically the Marineford and post-war arcs of the Summit War Saga. It has taken me a while to digest this one, let me tell you. It is just... wow. I have been through the ringer on this one, feeling a bit like I was in the midst of all of that myself, but let's talk about it. Let's begin with Ace, actually. In another panel that convinces me of Oda's genius, we see in the opening here of Marineford a moment that is extremely reminiscent of the very opening of One Piece, where we see Gold D. Roger at the very start with swords crossed, ready for his execution. And we see that the apple has not fallen far from the tree, even though Ace does not regard Roger as his true father. That is Whitebeard, of course. This is a lot of foreshadowing here. This is a lot of foreshadowing about this theme of fathers and sons that we see throughout these arcs. What does it mean to be a father? When is a son ready to strike out on his own? And when is a father ready to let go? What exactly do children inherit from their parents? Ace finds himself in the same exact position as Roger, but he regards Whitebeard as his true father. There's also plenty in here about mothers, and you see that Ace's mother, in particular, made an incredible sacrifice to save his life, holding on to him until he was safe at the cost of her own life. The sacrifice of parents. This is a major theme of this particular saga, the Summit War Saga. The sacrifice of parents and parental figures. You can even see it in someone like Garp, who makes a very different decision. He makes a different sacrifice, choosing his ideals over his family, but also at a severe cost. One father who most certainly does love his children is Whitebeard. Amidst this vast convergence of power, this amazing battle sequences, this apocalyptic, incredible vision. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about all of the fighting and everything else. I just was continuously off balance during all of this and amazed at the scaling up of everything here. But what I found most beautiful is all the loyalty, and that, of course, is a major One Piece theme. theme as well. You see it amidst all of these pirates who come to save Ace. You see it amongst Luffy and his followers. Luffy, who has won the loyalty of so many through being who he is, through, as we learn too, something perhaps to do with his haki as well. But there's just so much going on here emotionally in the midst of all of this. We learn how Ace became Whitebeard's son in the first place, meeting Shanks and Jinbei along the way, and also going from foe to son, a son of Whitebeard, and even eventually a leader among his crew, earning their loyalty to him. They are there despite Ace disobeying and going off to avenge their crew member by hunting down Blackbeard against Whitebeard's orders. And he is attempting to bring Blackbeard to justice. And Whitebeard and the rest of them pretend that Ace didn't disobey in order to preserve their code of honor, in order to affirm their crewmate, their brother in the midst of this. And I find that just so beautiful. Whitebeard and his crews and their allies, just so many great, wow, new characters. Marco the Phoenix, maybe one of my new favorites. I love this guy. He has some fantastic moments in there. But you've got them, you've got the world government, you've got the warlords, you've got the admirals. Just the greatest concentration of power, the greatest convergence that has happened thus far in One Piece, for sure. And it's also, importantly, the end of an era, the beginning of something new. And there's a ton of foreboding in this, which I'm going to be talking about. But there's just so many moments I could shout out. There's the sacrifice of Little Oars Jr. Oh no, Little Oars Jr., who provides a path. Boa Hancock sabotaging her erstwhile supposed allies in order to help Luffy. You have Whitebeard's earth-shattering, literally earth-shattering power. There's just this mayhem, which is encapsulated in Doflamingo's reveling in the chaos. He's kind of a low-key figure here in the midst of all this. And he importantly notes that justice will prevail, undoubtedly, because it's always on the side of the winner. And the winner gets to define justice in this case. So kind of a cynical view of justice, which again is another major theme throughout these arcs. Just another big One Piece thing, which I'm going to talk about some more. But in the midst of this, all of this chaos and battle and power and everything else falls. Of course he falls from the sky. Of course he falls. Luffy and his allies. You've got Eva and Jinbei and even Crocodile, all the people who escaped from Impel Down. And they've arrived in the midst of this to save Ace. I love the meaning of Luffy and Whitebeard in particular because there is despite the rivalry, I'm going to save Ace, I'm going to, there is a bond that forms, a respect that grows rapidly between these two. And it begins, I think, when Luffy prevents Crocodile's treacherous attempt on Whitebeard's life. Though Crocodile, importantly, does redeem himself, I think, to some degree here in the midst of the conflict. I'll mention those moments as well, but Crocodile has some really cool moments in here, saving the day, so to speak. Yeah, this rivalry bond between Luffy and Whitebeard, just great stuff. And of course, Ace tries to protect Luffy by telling him, go away, I don't want you here, reminiscent of how he tried to tell him to go away when they were little boys. In that backstory, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. So he tells him to go away. And of course, Luffy's response is the same as it was when he was a little boy. He is just so beautifully stubborn and loyal and just unconquerable. That is why we love Luffy. And while he vows to save Ace, even if it kills him, Ace resigns himself to death. And this is a poignant thing here. He wishes to spare his friends, his family, his loved ones, feeling all this time unworthy of their sacrifice for him. And it's really later that we learn the full extent of Ace's doubts about his own worth and his questioning if it might not be better if he hadn't been born even. Despite Luffy's determination, it does become evident that he is very much overmatched and relies on the help of his allies, such as Boa Hancock, saving him from Smoker, for example. There is a sense of doom looming over this conflict the whole time. For example, when Eva learns from Doflamingo that Kuma is dead, that his humanity has been eradicated, which is seemingly a consequence of him volunteering as a revolutionary to perhaps infiltrate the world government. But that being the case, Luffy is perhaps overmatched, but he shows signs of maturity. Even in the midst of being overmatched and determined, he does show some signs, such as when Mihawk observes. Mihawk being, I think, a reluctant adversary in all of this. He is one of the warlords and is doing his job there, but he notes Luffy's calmness and his power of making other people, this is related to his haki as well, his power to make other people want to help him. And I think Mihawk has some really great insights, very perceptive Mihawk is, a very cool character as well.
God Valley is by far the single most important event that has happened in One Piece so far, easily. It's the source of pretty much everything going on in One Piece, and pretty much also every single big player that's going for One Piece right now and relevant for the endgame. All of the Yonko are related to this event. We have Holy Knights, we have Marines, we have, the entire Monkey family. So much going back to this one event that I think it's really worth sitting down with you in this, very long video, kind of without a script, just you and me hanging out in my old room in Europe, and just discuss this entire thing. What happened? What were the prizes? Who was there? What were the events? Because we finally know pretty much everything that went down. And I want to show you why I personally really believe that God Valley is the single best thing that Oda has written in One Piece so far, because I'm sure there's going to be even better stuff. And even though this might sound a little bit, over the top, hopefully we'll be able to show you why I think this is absolutely the case and why this is just the best piece of writing Oda has ever done and how it makes the story of One Piece so much better for me and in general, hopefully also for you. And so to really kick this off, in the first part, I want to talk about the secrets of God Valley. Because before we even get to the God Valley incident, the big war and the crazy event that took place there, the island itself also has been the center of a bunch of big mysteries, secrets, and just surprising lore drops that we've been getting sprinkled throughout the last few chapters. Firstly, straight up, God Valley, an island from the West Blue, by the way, that nowadays has vanished from the maps, turns out to be the home of quite a few of the key players that we get in the story, including Roxy Zebek, Shanks, his brother Shamrock, kind of Blackbeard. It sounds like Blackbeard was born somewhere else, but then at least raised to a certain degree on God Valley because that's his father Rox's island, right? This obviously now works really well with the big comments we got during Egghead Island that Blackbeard has special lineage and a special body.
上がれ心臓の音
Ready, set, go. Well, that was kind of anticlimactic. It's a thinking model after all. This is the M1 MacBook Air running GPT OSS 20 billion. I've got a web application architecture prompt in here. Design a scalable web application architecture for an e-commerce platform. And it's doing it on an M1 MacBook Air from 2020. Go, go, go. All right, stop being silly. Let's see what we get. 12.8 tokens per second. Not bad for an oldie like this, which means you can actually run this on budget laptops. And I'm going to be doing that one, the M2 MacBook Air, the M3 MacBook Air, and the M4 MacBook Air. These are all budget machines that people either already have, or maybe you're a student and you want to get into software development and you want to get yourself a MacBook Air, and you're wondering, can I run LLMs on it? It's a hot topic nowadays. I want to be able to do that. And obviously the answer is yes, but there's one thing I want to add. This MacBook Air, the M1, has 16 gigabytes of RAM, unified memory, as Apple likes to call it. But sometimes M1s and M2s and even M3s come with 8 gigabytes of memory. It's not until the M4s that 16 was the minimum. So can we run small models on this? And what's the point? We're going to move
I didn't watch anime besides the first episode. I didn't know if I liked how it looked. But I'm gonna catch up eventually. Outside, appreciate the 5 gifts to my boy.
Thank you.
Let's watch the JJK trailer, bro. I've really been waiting to watch that. Is it this one? Oh, official teaser trailer with English subtitles. This is the one we should do. Wait, right? Is this the right one, no chat? Because the other one.
Are you streaming it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same as they say. This one just got volume booster. Okay.
俺はもうみんなと一緒にはいら